Hi everybody, I'm just sharing this video, calling attention to this video and actually the series of videos as shown here on the Academy of Ideas channel on YouTube, which is an absolutely excellent channel, and I strongly advise people to take a look through and watch at least a few of the videos that are on this channel, because it's very relative to where we are at today in terms of humanity. You know, the different nations now, we are a much smaller world by way of the internet, and there is a very high level of social engineering happening, and the control of whole populations, the control of nations, is in the hands of a very few people who head a conglomerate, a collective of global corporations, which are in turn comprised also of shareholders that then make, you know, the lower levels of the ultra rich among humanity, which in itself is a tiny minority of the people on earth can own and control the corporations, the governments, the media. They have most of the money. They are today richer than entire nations. You can have one man, like, say, Jeff Bezos, who is wealthier than several nations, okay, his own personal wealth, which itself reflects an imbalance. And really, it is amount to a crime that people are enabled to become so ultra wealthy, while other people are enabled through the policies of the politicians controlled by these wealthy people, that people actually are rendered impoverished. Poverty is a crime, you see. And especially abject poverty is one of the worst crimes. It is one of the worst impacts on it has one of the worst impacts on human health. Poverty kills millions of children every year. Now, here on this particular video, we have, is a mass psychosis the greatest threat to humanity? And it goes through history of, well, here we go. The totalitarian systems of the 20th century represent a kind of collective psychosis, whether gradually or suddenly reason and common human decency are no longer possible in such a system. There is only a pervasive atmosphere of terror and a projection of the enemy imagined to be in our midst. Thus, society turns on itself, urged by the ruling authorities. Now, that is so relevant today. This statement was made by Joost Meerloo in The Rape of the Mind. This is exactly what we as a species, especially in the Western world, are living in right now, where every year there's fear, paranoia, terror. There's a terror alert. We're fighting terrorists. Huge sums of money, trillions, have been poured into the war on terror. And actually, as we look around our planet, we can see that the more money and energy is being pumped into this war on terror, whether it be terror from an organisation or a group of individuals or a virus, okay, the more money is being pumped into it, the more mass psychosis develops around that issue, to the extent people agree to have all their rights stripped away from them. Okay? The worse that the thing they claim to be fighting gets. We witnessed the same with the war on drugs. Okay, this war on drugs, since the war on drugs began, there have never been so many drugs available. There have never been so many drug addicts. There have never been so many people suffering from the ill effects of drugs and the contaminations that are included in the drugs, because, you know, criminalising natural products and, you know, natural plants actually has the impact of making those plants then very valuable. And people will do all kinds of things to get hold of those plants because they want to exploit them, because they know they're highly addictive and they know that they've got a captive market. That's exactly why Britain used opium to enslave China. I think it's how Britain got hold of Hong Kong, was through the addiction. And fear can become an addiction as well, because if you're living your days in fear, it means you can forget about all your other fears. Your fears about the fact that you may lose your job, or that you're worrying about how to pay your mortgage, or whatever fears you have. If you've got the BBC out there promulgating, perpetuating this fear about a virus, and you can spend every day just focusing on that, just talking about that, you don't need to talk about yourself. You see, fear can be a coping mechanism in a difficult world. And as the world becomes more and more difficult, people will increasingly be turning to fears in order to lessen the impact of other fears. The fears that exist just by living in a world that is fundamentally, you know, paranoid schizophrenic. Our elite, our governing elite, are paranoid schizophrenic. That is what they are. We witness it in our politicians. That on the one hand they say this, but then behind the scenes they're saying that. Them speak with forked tongue. The Native American Indians understood it. Why are the populations, Western populations of today, failing to understand that? Failing to understand that the face that what we're being told by the BBC is the cover of a glossy magazine. But really, the true narrative behind the content of the magazine is basically Frankenstein's monster. And we are constantly being fed with fear, and this has been going on for 4 centuries. You know, I think they do start to cover the witch trials. They do cover the witch trials in this as well, which again was a mass psychosis, that people genuinely believed that some woman or man who was, you know, practicing natural medicine was actually a witch and had cast a spell on them, and as a result they'd suffered misfortune, or a member of their family had died. And it had a devastating effect. It ripped apart communities. But that is exactly what is happening with the COVID-19 narrative, in the sense that communities are being divided. People are suspicious of each other. People are afraid to hug each other. Oh, you might cast the COVID spell on me. That people have suddenly out of all the coronaviruses out there, and other viruses, flu viruses, for example, everything that's out there, all the other ailments and the problems with our diet and the toxins that are impacting our health, we can forget all about them. We don't need to think about them. The only thing we need to think about is COVID-19. And be fearful of that, and be good, you know, get your brownie points, wear your mask, Okay, do your social distancing. Never mind that the masks contain all kinds of bacteria, pneumonia, you name it, have been found. When these masks have been studied, as a group of parents in America handed in their children's masks to be studied, and it was absolutely shocking what was found in those masks. Everything from pneumonia, I mean, it was absolutely terrible. Pneumonia, meningitis, E. coli, all found in their children's masks. It's deeply, deeply, deeply worrying. The phenomenon we have witnessed in Germany was nothing less than the outbreak of epidemic insanity. No one knew what was happening to him, least of all the Germans, who allowed themselves to be driven to the slaughterhouse by their leading psychopaths like hypnotised sheep, Carl Jung, after the catastrophe. And of course he was talking about Nazi Germany and what happened within society via a controlled media and an extremist Nazi government that was hell-bent on purifying the Germanic race. And, allowed themselves to be driven to the slaughterhouse by their leading psychopaths. People like me are often heavily criticised because, I express emotions, and apparently my emotions make me weak. And the fact that I express emotions and I get emotional is either something to be ridiculed, it's highly amusing, or it signifies that, you can't really trust me because I'm not a balanced person, because I'm too emotional. I let my emotions run away with me. Actually, I don't. I tend to get emotional about an attack against my sanity, an attack against my health, an attack against my rights. When somebody slaps you hard across the face, you might make a sound, express some emotion about that. And we have a right to our emotions, and we need to stand up for our right to have an emotion. It's something that too many parents are literally slapping out of their children. No, you're not allowed to get angry. No, stop doing that. You're not, stop being upset. Oh, but we're allowed to be happy. We're allowed to laugh. We're allowed to smile, to give praise, adulation. Oh, we can get all emotional about football, for example. But actually, we have a right. We need to be allowing our children to express emotions and to learn to deal with them, to learn to get angry and to be able to overcome it and to get through it and to understand that, to be able to look back on that and say, well, yeah, I was really angry, and to learn from it. And unfortunately, children aren't being allowed to do it. And by the time people are getting to adults, they are becoming over-emotional. They're suppressing their emotions. And when they do experience an emotion, they don't know how to deal with it. If they get angry, they might be angry all day or all week, or they might hurt somebody because of it. Whereas people who understand their emotions and are liberated to express them, you see, they are able to deal with their emotions. They aren't debilitated by them. And unfortunately, within the context of social engineering, dampening down and suppressing and oppressing people's emotions is all part of it. But we are allowed to get emotional about anybody who steps outside of the dictates as being proposed by the social engineering. So, people are allowed to get very angry about somebody who's not wearing a mask. people are allowed to get very angry about the fact that lockdowns are ending. So, you know, as I say, I'll leave this and a couple of other links under here, and I do, I suggest that people watch this video, especially. Is a mass psychosis the greatest threat to humanity? And that we ask ourselves that question, is it? And if it is, what are we going to do about it? Thank you.